Hello, Prasanjit sir.
Yes. Hi. Hello.
Hi. Good evening, sir. Sir, I am Pritesh Wadhwa.
Okay. Hi. Hi, Pratyush. Hi.
As and when people join, they would show up in the panelists or the attendees. If there would be any attendees, sir has instructed me to change their title to panelists only so that they can also interact.
Okay.
And
Okay.
as and when I have to transfer the presenter privilege, do tell me and I'll do so.
Okay. The presenter privilege would be basically that once. So we will introduce the first speaker, and then the presenter will start presenting. Right. That's
Yeah,
the.
yeah, yeah. Just
Okay.
just tell me the name of the person to whom the privilege has to be given, and I'll do so.
Sure. So our first paper, there are many presenters. How do we know who's presenting exactly? Can we?
Actually, in the past events also, what was happening was that there were many people for the same paper,
Yeah.
but there was only one person who was going to present.
Okay, okay. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, I saw that. So so how do we know who's going to, so is Rajiv Ratan Shah, is, hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do we know who is going to present from that particular panel? Whoever is present.
Actually,
Sir,
I
they
don't know
can
about.
yeah, they can message they generally message the host the name of the presenter, and the host gives them the presentation rights.
All right. Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. Anything else? Anything else that you would want to tell us before we start?
No, that's it. I guess if there is anything else, please feel free to tell either me or Mitakshi about it, and we'll manage the things.
Okay, Pratish. So what I should do is should I chat, should I type it somewhere or?
Yeah, you can either chat or you can just use the microphone to say I would be here throughout the conference.
Okay, okay, great. All right, all right. Okay, thank you. Yeah,
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are. Yes. So just let us know when we can start. Yes. No?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Hi. May I know who would be presenting from the first group?
That would be me, sir. Ritvik Mishra.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sir, there is another author of the paper I'm presenting. He's an attendee. Can you make him a panelist?
I think Pratyush, can you? Hello, Pratyush,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, talking about Sneh Gupta, because I'm trying to make him the panelist,
Yes.
but it's not showing. Probably he might have entered the conference using Linux.
Okay.
So it's not possible to make someone panelist if the person is using Linux. I'm sorry.
Okay. No problem. Kanai, if you feel like speaking something, please inform us in the chat. The host will unmute you if needed. Okay.
Hi, Ritvik. Hello. So,
Sir.
yes. So, we will introduce you and then you can start your presentation. Is that okay? All right.
Hi, good evening to everyone. I am Evelyn Sadana and this is Prasenjit Tribhuvan, and we will be hosting this session on the multimedia state and big data. And the first paper is by the researchers and scholars from IIIT Delhi and IIIT Hyderabad. And Ritvik Mishra sir will be beginning with the first paper, which is analyzing traffic violations through e-challan system in metropolitan cities. Sir, you have the time to speak for about 20 minutes, and I will interrupt you at about 18 minutes, and then we can have some questions for about 3 to 4 minutes. Yes, please, to you, sir.
Okay.
Is my screen visible to all?
Yes, yes, I think it's visible to it. You can please proceed.
Okay, sir. Yes. So actually, I am a PhD student from IIIT New Delhi, and this is our paper. A slight introduction to what we are doing and how it is relevant. Basically, if you see that the ever increasing population size also brought a curse of the increasing population of vehicles to us. So the stats show us that the road length of India has been increased 39%, whereas number of motor vehicles are increased by 158%. So this leads to another problem, that the road accidents also increases to a manifold. So as you can see, the road accidents in the age group of 5 to 29 was the most probable reason for the death. The stats are from World Health Organization. Uh, Plus, the same report shows that the underdeveloping or middle income countries like India are going to get affected the worst because of these rising fatalities. And because these are all the road traffic incidents, uh, major a majority of them can be avoided if they just follow the road traffic norms. So one solution to this problem, which we could see and which is very apparent, is the automatic surveillance. Because the human constable has a limit to monitor the area, the automatic surveillance system is quite readily adopted in many metropolitan cities of India. Currently, there are 13 metropolitan uh, cities which are adopted this automatic traffic surveillance systems. The fines which are generated by the system, the traffic violation fine, are called as the e-challan, which is the basis of our project. Uh, the entire system of this e-challan or the automatic surveillance are in two folds. One, that they are capable of capturing the violation, and they also issue an e-challan if they found any violation, and that all happens without any human intervention. Some other benefits of that it acts as a database where a human traffic constable can upload the fines, and whenever the database gets a new entry, the traffic violation is reported to the person through SMS who conducted that violation. Plus, keeping keeping in mind all of that, we collected a data set of each land from the metropolitan cities of Delhi and Ahmedabad. Uh, Also, Telangana and Mumbai also has a similar website, but in this study we have limited our domain to Delhi and Ahmedabad. So now I will move to the research questions, what we are tackling. Our first research question is to characterize how can each land be used to find the distribution. To find the distribution of traffic violation and fine payment patterns. Which traffic violations are more common, and what is the fine amount, and which fines amount are likely to be paid. Apart from that, we also looked into the spatial and temporal patterns uh, across metropolitan cities of India. Just to make the comparison a little wider, we have stated this as well in the paper, that the road length of Delhi is nearly 20,000 kilometers, whereas Ahmedabad is nearly 2.5. So Delhi and Ahmedabad more or less vary on a scale of 10. On every aspect, Delhi shows the trait of the 10 times are that of Ahmedabad. Plus, we also use the concept of each land to study how the government regulations specifically related to the roads can be assessed using just the data of each lance. For this, we specifically consider the Motor Vehicles Amendment Act, which was passed in the September 2019. Other schemes that we could have explored are some like odd even scheme of effectiveness of lockdown. But for the study, we have restricted ourselves to the MVA, the Motor Vehicles Amendment Act. So now I will talk about the dataset collection part. So actually, we ping the Ahmedabad and Delhi traffic management portals to get the number of each lane. So these are the images or the results that we get when we ping the website. This is the result we get on the Ahmedabad, and this is the result we get on New Delhi. So as you can see, we just need the vehicle number, and we will get the all each lane that are associated with that number, and similar with Ahmedabad. So because the city of Ahmedabad has much less number of vehicles, and their the nomenclature of the number plate is quite easy to permute. That's why we tried all the permutation of the vehicle number for Ahmedabad. But in case of Delhi, checking all the permutation was not actually feasible. Here we have here this NN represent the DL is for Delhi. The NN represents the RTO number. The T is the vehicle type. The double X are the two alphabets which can represent a register number of that RTO, and the D and the four Ds are the running 4-digit number. These 4D are common in both Gujarat and Delhi. So that's why we check the subset of the permutation using a pruning heuristics. On an estimate, we covered more than 60% of all the active vehicles that we could cover. As far as I remember, Delhi has nearly 1 crore registered vehicles, out of which I think 60 lakh are on road. So to make a distinction, I would like to point it out at this point only that our data set is collected in two phases. The first phase was from 15th April to 31st August. The 15th April was the date when the Ahmedabad traffic management portal started working effectively, or it started working from that day only. And 31st August we chose as a cutoff date so that we can analyze the Motor Vehicles Amendment Act. And the second phase is just for the is collection of those is a collection of each of those vehicles that we collected during the first phase. So the each that we collected during the first phase, we extracted a number of unique vehicles and then pinged them again in the second phase. So this is the timeline of the second phase. Now I will give you a slide description of the dataset. In total, including the first and second phase, we collected 6 million e-challans from Delhi and Ahmedabad. Some major attributes in a dataset are the date, location, type of violation, fine amount, and the paid or unpaid. The bracket shows that these special attributes are available only for the specific metropolitan city. For example, in Ahmedabad each run only had date, whereas Delhi it had a timestamp. The timestamp we meant a date and a hour, minute, and second timestamp as well. And apart from that, the paid and unpaid dataset we are for Ahmedabad, and for vehicle class, the number plate gives the vehicle type in case of New Delhi only, because Gujarat number plate doesn't follow any norm. Apart from that, we geocoded all the location. As you can see, we had a location type, and in the subsequent slide you will see that it was easy. It was slightly easy to geocode the number of locations in Ahmedabad. For New Delhi, we had more than 50,000 locations. So that's why we use a separate script to geotag the each round of Delhi. And as far as our estimate, 98% of the each rounds in Delhi were successfully geotagged. So this is the data set description. Overall, all of this is given in the paper as well. So the interesting thing to note is that the total unpaid amount from each launch tallies to 4 billion. That includes the fine, the unpaid traffic fine from Delhi and Ahmedabad both. Okay, so this specific graph here tells us that the how many percentage of vehicles from a total of these many vehicles, how many percentage of them have only one each lane. In case of Ahmedabad, it is nearly 43%, whereas in case of Delhi, it reaches nearly 58%. So it slightly shows us that in Delhi, majority of people had only one each lane. We also have some outliers here where one vehicles had 300 or 400 each lanes, unpaid each lanes as well, but we are treating them as outliers only. Then we come to the payment patterns. The unpaid each-challenge ratio is nearly 1:3 ratio. As you can see, from a total of each challenge, the paid each challenge were nearly 1:3, and from a worth of total each challenge, the paid each challenge constituted of nearly 1/3 only. So the ratio of this specific uh, paid each challenge ratio and unpaid is slightly less than this specific ratio. This suggested that people were likely to pay the each challenge that were of lower denomination. Apart from that, we also analyzed that uh, from a total uh, population of each challenge, nearly 34% of the paid fines were of the denomination 1,000 or less, whereas only 18% were slightly more than that. Now we will come to the distribution of violation types. As you can see, in case of New Delhi, most of the violation types were of red light violation and over speeding only. As compared to Ahmedabad, where nearly more than 95% of the traffic fines were of the red light violation only. So, if we just take the top 5 violation types, it accounts for 68% in case of New Delhi and 98% in case of Ahmedabad. Plus, if we consider the location of the traffic fines, we can see that in Ahmedabad, the specific traffic fines, improper parking and red light violation show some specific insights. For example, the red light violation, which is shown here in the right, is more or less concentrated on the Sabarmati River, I think, and the improper parking is nearly concentrated in two hotspots. One is near the river and one is left side of the river. Then we continue to the spatial distribution. As per our location in our data set, these are the distribution of spatial locations. As you can see, in case of Ahmedabad, a majority of chunk was in the location named Shamlal, as compared to New Delhi, where the location of each land is more or less spread. In both cases, we took the top 5 locations, and these are the insights that we obtained, that in Delhi the traffic fines are more or less spread out. One reasoning for that we suggested is that in terms of area, Delhi is also nearly 10 times as compared to Ahmedabad, and these are the growth of each branch in the temporal domain. Now we will come to the how each branch progress through time. As you can see, in case of New Delhi, the frequency of each branch actually grew exponentially, whereas in case of Ahmedabad, it reached a peak and started lowering till the end of 2019, specifically September. This is the cutoff point we chose because after that point we were collecting the each launch of the same vehicles. Apart from that, one insight that we obtain is the drop of each launch in case of festival. Like For example, in Ahmedabad, the Rath Yatra is occurred nearly in the month of July 2008, 18th 7th month and 19th 7th month. So in both cases, we see a sharp drop. One reasoning that we suggested is that the most of the human constables were on the security duty, so there was very less incident of uh, traffic violation. Apart from that, as we had the data set of hour of hour of traffic violation and minute of traffic violation in case of Delhi, we did a temporal distribution analysis on Delhi only. So one insight that we found that a majority of chunk of violation occur in this short span, which we commonly known as the working hours, the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Also, in case of specific violation called stop line, we saw there is a sharp increase in the violation of two-wheelers as compared to cars. We suggested the reasoning behind it could be that for two-wheeler it is easier to navigate the traffic jam as compared to a car, and these specific time periods are the time periods at which the office starts and closes. Uh, Hereafter, we use the each line as a proxy to measure the effectiveness of some government regulation related to road. Our analysis shows that
Sorry to interrupt. You have 3 more minutes to present. You may have 3 more. Okay. Yeah.
okay, sir, I will wrap it up. So, as our analysis shows that initially Delhi saw sharp decline, whereas in Ahmedabad during the same period the traffic violation were increasing. But as the time progresses, uh, the the traffic violation in Ahmedabad were slightly made lenient as compared to Delhi, where the fine increased to many manifolds. So the overall observation that we made that in case of New Delhi, although the traffic fines amount was raised quite substantially, but the effect of the uh, traffic violation subsided or nearly vanished after November. Our data showed that in case of December 2019, instead of negative growth, the growth uh, became positive and actually crossed the average number of each run per month for the entire year of 2019. And even in 2020, the first week showed average number of each runs greater than the entire year of 2019. Whereas Ahmedabad, we saw a slight decrease. Obviously, we don't claim that this is the only measure to calculate the effectiveness of a government regulation. There might be data bias and representation bias in our data set. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that our work observed that only the top 2 violations in a city account for a majority of violation. The insights that we obtain shows us that the law enforcement agencies can focus on some temporal and spatial patterns that we find in a dataset that could help them to curb the increasing traffic violations. We also show the effectiveness of each launch to act as a proxy measure to calculate the efficacy of government regulations. And the overall analysis shows that the procedure of increasing the traffic fines doesn't necessarily decrease the traffic violation, and this stands concurrent to the research findings of the previous researches. Okay, so that was the end of the presentation. Now we can take some questions.
Yes, can we have some questions from the panelists? Does anybody have any questions? Hi, Ritvik. I'm Evelyn. Can I ask you a question?
Hello, ma'am. Hello. Ma'am. Sure.
So I wanted to ask you, since this is big data and you are looking at traffic violations, so this is one data set. And you were saying that, like, like in your paper, you concluded that the chalans don't have a long-term effect. So I was thinking, what other data sets would you propose that we should combine with these violations to sort of make the traffic, to reduce the traffic violations and to reduce the effect of increasing traffic?
Ma'am, if anybody is interested to extending the work, I can recommend that there is also a similar website of the Transport Department of India. I'm not sure I'm telling the name of the ministry right, but there is a portal which can give you the you can give the vehicle number to that portal, and it will give you all the details of the vehicles, like the make of the vehicle, the registration date, the PUC date, whether the vehicle is bought on a loan or not. So with that data set combined with this, we can make a better argument that for these specific vehicle types, for example, like Honda City or Tata Nano or small vehicles type like hatchback vehicles mostly commit this type of traffic violation, whereas two-wheelers conduct these type of traffic violations. So to answer your question, we can use that data set as well. We were in the process of collecting it as well, but there was a issue with the website. So after incorporating that, the claim can be made more effective.
Okay, thank you, Ritvik. Thank you to the presenters of the paper.
Okay, so we now invite Chetna Kuar to please present her paper. To please come forward and present her paper. Yes. If Pratiksha, please. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got the presenter right. Okay, so can you let me know if we can please see the screen? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So my name is Chetna and I'm an incoming doctoral student at Chicago Sociology, specialized in critical urban studies. I just completed my master's and this is a refurbishment of my master's thesis. So the topic for today.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Chetna, but your voice is not very clear. Can you please?
Sure.
Yeah.
Does this work? Can you hear me now?
It's still not very clear. Can you just?
Right. Just give me a second.
Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. This is much. Yeah. Yes, this is much better. Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Chetna. Please go ahead.
Okay.
It's much better. Yeah.
Hi. So my name is Chetna and I'm an incoming student at Chicago and I specialize in critical urban studies and social theory. So I'm going to present a paper on informal human settlements, big data, and social theory in Morocco. This is a reformulation of my
Yeah, I'm sorry again, Chetna. Is it? I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Can't hear
Is
me?
it clear to everyone, or is it just on my end?
Yeah, I think
Sir,
The volume is a little low.
sir.
Hello.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Is this better? Is this better?
The thing is, your voice drops in between. And
Okay. Let me try to fix it, and please let me know if it cracks again. So I'll try to, because I'm trying to change between my earphones. Or is this audible now?
yes. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Thank you. Okay. So the paper adopts actor network theory, which has been endorsed by sociologists like Caron, Mitchell, and Latour, to basically problematize how the Chicago School of Economics utilizes big data. And I picked up this topic because I wanted to study how international organizations of today are using big data to measure the livelihood of urban poor. And my case study has been Morocco and the policies targeting the eradication of informal human settlements, namely slums and shanties. And The basic theoretical intervention here would be to utilize Kellogg and Mitchell's theory of economization and understand how big data plays a transforming role in framing and the politics of metrology. For me, one of the most interesting aspects of this workshop was to understand how the state uses international organizations to utilize big data and to produce policy experts on poverty and development in post-colonial states. So this paper is going to try to elaborate on socioeconomic implications of big data utilized in urban cities, specifically on slums and shanties, and how this field has being utilized by academicians and policy experts in reinstating state and market power. So the research question has developed by utilizing Hayek, DeSoto, and Bauer's ideas of free market project. And by using those ideas, I try to understand how Kellogg and Mitchell try to analyze the Chicago School of Economics and how their reproduction of neoliberal ideas have been associated with fixing economies, and I'm going to go in detail of what I mean by fixing economies later. I picked up the case of Morocco because it has been one of the first countries in North Africa which implemented the IMF's structural adjustment plans, and so I follow one of the policies started by UN Habitat, which was of eradicating slums and shanties and transferring the urban poor into state-controlled social housing units in peripheries of cities such as Marrakesh and Fez. These policies are based on theories of which I will see later, mostly on Bauer and DeSoto, and how the productive livelihood of urban poor has been controlled by the state in certain countries. So the causal mechanism for such theories is the eradication of slums and banning of informal employment. What I mean by this is that we see often that theories, in this particular case, in DeSoto's case, we see that the theory tries to establish a certain research agenda, and the research agenda uses certain causal mechanisms as understood because of the economic interpretation in it. So the method adopted in this paper is by tracing the narrow but well-signposted paths that connect the experiment to other projects. So the experiment here being to disintegrate the slums and shanties, because it is assumed that the informal economy and the informal households are a problem to security of the state and the economy. And so the work of economics in Morocco has been studied by Kellogg, Mitchell, and Latour in this case. A brief literature review. I mostly utilize Mitchell, but as I was told in my R&R that I should try to expand Mitchell and not try to particularly see this data just from Mitchell's point of view. So I have tried to make some changes towards the end, but I'm going to run through Kellogg and Latour before that. So Kellogg, Latour, and Mitchell endorse the region of familiar conceptual distinctions, and so although Latour is most famous for, and we see that all three of them have tried to push forward the idea that social science, in this sense, needs to be seen as performed both for material and human beings, and the society doesn't lie outside of networks and actors, and how a lot of times these kind of disciplinary distinctions are an impediment to our thinking. For Kellogg, and what for me was interesting because we talk about market and state in this workshop. The process of economization is a process by which the assembly of actors, devices, analytical and practical distinctions are classified as economic. And by doing so, we try to make economic as a sphere separate from the social and the political. So Kellogg defines this sphering or framing as a process performed primarily by economics that define agents such as individuals, humans, and non-humans to demonstrate them as clearly distinct from one another. And for Mitchell, such narrow frames are bound to be conflicted specifically in post-colonial countries. Mitchell's work has been most famous in North Africa and Egypt, as he tries to show that the autonomous sphere of economy created by policy experts tries to reimagine the relationship between economics and the object. In doing so, I try to show that all three of them are trying to push forward the idea that we need to reject studying this constructed economy solely and instead focus on specific action involved in the qualification process of this idea of economic. And back to the slide for 1 second. The modern economy is hence a resultant of not only the framing efforts by policy experts, but also how we try to interpret it. So by following Mitchell's analysis of exploring uncertainty around interconnections between the state, policies, humans, and non-human actors in Morocco, I will be trying to understand how, although the policy had certain problems going within it, this is not an attempt in trying to show the problems with the policy or the results of the policy, but how the policy has been popularized by international organizations to reinstate state power. Here I'm showing a brief, I think I'm short of time, so I'm going to stop. So the economy and big data mission pushes further the ideas advocated by Kaval and Letton to stress how contemporary politics was constructed around the object, the economy, and how policy experts and IOs depend on specifically big data to validate themselves and hegemonize this idea. Socioeconomic consequences of this, which we see later in Morocco, is that the deployment of such expertise requires and encourages the construction of distinct socio-technical roles. And Mitchell stresses that specifically in post-colonial states, what happens is that, which are fertile grounds for testing economic experiments, what happens is that the forming of the economy, frame of Indian national economy has allowed recasting of international order, hegemony of international organizations, and specifically, in some ways, colonial order. In this process, the post-colonial nations become sites of production of data in the form of materiality, which is then used by international organizations as a case study for other countries. So I believe that ANT can be used in this case specifically as ANT allows us to do what economics is doing rather than what it says. And by saying that, I mean that we can understand moments when policies advocated by economic studies allow us to see moments in which markets become vulnerable to challenge. In this case, the challenge was shown by the slum dwellers, and they face obstruction in carrying out their agenda and their governance in abstraction. So one way that I have done this is by engaging with ANT and seeing how many of the slum dwellers have networks with the rural towns in which they migrated from, the informal activities that they are engaged in, by which I mean they are engaged in a plethora of informal employment. One of the major employment for slum dwellers in Morocco is based on the tourism industry. So one of the main methods that ANT uses is observing at a distance, which means that the networks, we try to analyze the networks, including the material and the non-material, and trace the frames that are used to construct the methodology. And by including the material, what I'm saying is we trace the conformity of the studying of the academic economics and describe the functioning of the economy as a product of socio-technical abstract conceptual devices that try to organize it. So the paper finds that the political machinery behind the social housing units and housing policies developed to govern the urban poor could not successfully master and represent the urban poor, because we see that although a lot of the shanties and slums were eradicated, the slum dwellers found new ways to go back to their areas, build new slums which were not a part of the policy reports by UN Habitat. And therefore, Mitchell's methodology is used to recognize how the politics of such a methodology is allowed by big data, and in some ways reinstates the power of international organizations, which are often in confluence with the state in Morocco. So two of the policies that were adopted in this case are important to understand in the sense that why the state was trying to control the informal human settlements in the first place. In the case of Morocco, the bread riots of 1981 and the suicide bombings of 2003 and the Arab uprisings were often found to be perpetrators were found to be traced back from urban poor settlements, which led to stigmatization of the slums, including out of radicalization, and it was theorized that poverty, degraded living conditions, and a lack of control by the state played a role in such security problems. Hence, trying to validate why it was important to bring them under social housing units. Two of the policies were the SPL INDH, the National Initiative for Human Development, and Cities Without Slums. And the implementation of both of these programs was based on the Millennium Development Goals of UNDP and United Nations Habitat. And so they tried to target 532 urban neighborhoods in Marrakech and Fez and Casablanca and provide modern social housing units in these areas. We see a few policy recommendations by OECD and UN Habitat, and I've tried to concise that into a few, which I thought was interesting for analyzing the connection between big data and state power. First of all, one of the policy recommendations was necessitating the production and use of territorial indicators that have been validated by OECD, and secondly, to bring in the new housing units and the core into measurable data to allow for maximum calculable success of the policy. What we try to push forward through this is that the need to make numbers to allow successful measurement has meant that situations where families move back to their rural villages, make new makeshift houses between the new social housing unit to maximize benefit at an option time, or the other records are absent from these policies. The research experiment has made all this possible by the policy experiments that it studies and uncovering the relationship between how the conclusions are framed and the rival overlapping methodologies allows understanding the relationship between the experiment and the making of economics itself. I'm going to briefly go into De Soto's argument about why housing sector and is closely linked to poverty. According to De Soto, formalization of property rights and the right to access of property allows uplifting people from the margins of poverty. And however, we see that in Morocco, some dwellers already do participate in the market through petty business developments, and transferring them into formal housing units made little difference in their productive lives. This is where the intervention should actually of how rigorous the policies final recommendations have been. Instead, we see that often OECD and UN Habitat try to push forward a more rigorous statistical methodology after the policy, and policies embracing World Bank advocated universal principles of development, good governance, are often translated into standardized abstract methodological packages, which can then be used to different political domains. One of the things that this paper tries to put forward is that the policies and programs surrounding the eradication of urban poverty had become more of an engineering project rather than seeing the socio-economic realities of the slum dwellers. And the research conducted on the slum problem per se is very different from in global north and global south. This includes both the processes and methods which are used to break down the slums, as well as questioning the evidence that is supposed to link the experiment to the larger policy. So here the policy being reduction in urban poverty, the experiment conducted was slum relocation and rehabilitation without seeing the kind of consequences such policies can have in post-colonialism. Innovative techniques like this of constructing social housing units and expert knowledges tries to homogenize the specific variation between countries, specifically in the global south, in an effort to finally render them viable and also make theories such as this more stronger. In conclusion, the sources of power for Mitchell in a lot of his readings, which I try to use most, is that power is fluid between state, policymakers, international organizations, and academics today when they try to push forward policies, often on poverty and development. And by arranging the material world of the urban poor, we can question these policies and the work of economics, which we take as granted today. And the urban poor, using their control and proximity to the material, have actually ended up challenging the economist representation and their proposition solutions, because we and being unrecorded by OECD. Finally, nudges methodology, the policies nurtured by the state were actually deployed to bring urban poor into calculable data and exert control over their productive lives and disconnect them from their livelihood. Here, it's important to note that material was actually encourages tracing the controversies raised by such experiments and to see how whether these experiments are successful or not. It's more important to see the entanglements between the social, the economic, the human, and the non-human that the disciplinary boundaries don't allow us. One way that this has been possible is by not a priori assuming categories of relationships to explain them, and Kalon thus pushes the idea that the larger aim of tracing the work of big data and the work of economics should be not to hegemonize quantitative research, but to look for moments and uncertainty in our knowledge systems that analyze this data.
Thank you, Chetna, for the presentation. The paper is now open for discussions. If anyone has any feedback, any questions, please go ahead and ask. Okay, so Chetna, I'll ask a question if you okay.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that this this particular we always have this conversation between engineers and social scientists, right? Well, where social scientists always talk about this. Everything is quantifiable, and quantifying particular, especially quantifying things like poverty, it leads to large loss of data, right? And like you said, right, when you talk about Calon and when you say that this data is lost, sort of to say, but now as as sociologists or as anthropologists, how do you think should we converse with engineers when we talk to them about about that not everything is quantifiable, but when we say, for example, when we talk about particular projects, right, where
Right.
And when we look at this project and we see that when we look at the outcomes of these projects, right, how do you think should an anthropologist go and criticize? What kind of language should we use to
I think more interestingly, I think that's the difference between an academic and a policy expert, that we tend to falter, be great at critiquing, falter at policy decisions. Having said that, since writing this paper, for instance, and reading the reviewer's comment, I have read a lot of Brenner's work. And Brenner, interestingly, criticizes although he says that Chill is great for studying post-colonial states and how they can be different from Western states, and how Kellogg and Latour's idea of breaking down disciplinary boundaries and the distinctions between the material and material is important for urban spatial studies. Someone like Brenner tries to further go forward and tries to have a conversation by saying that it is more important to understand that every space has its own specificity. So when we are talking about slums in India versus slums in Morocco, such a paper like mine is trying to question international organizations trying to transfer the knowledge from Morocco's policy to, say, India's policy. So what is more important is to have conversations with sociologists to understand how is it that the social upbringing of slum dwellers in India is different. So I feel like there needs to be a conversation between technical experts, sociologists, anthropologists, and political scientists about the realities of different states. And while and what is more important is that neither quantitative nor qualitative data in itself is really going to end poverty tomorrow. But what is important is that we need to understand that international organizations often have their own agenda behind a lot of these policies, and a lot of these data are working to reinstate certain kinds of power. So when a lot of policy experts working in economics try to push data forward, I feel that sociologists and anthropologists need to push back and try to contextualize a lot of this data for different countries or different spaces and different situations.
Okay. Thank you, Chetna. Just one reflection, if I may. Since you use framing so much, and since you have you also talk about about sort of bringing forth of things and how things are already coded in technology and how technology might work.
Right.
You may want to have a look at Heidegger's questions concerning technology.
Right.
It may help. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and also some people who use this who use Heidegger to sort of in context of technology today. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. I didn't know about
Okay.
it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending this session. And both the papers sort of I mean. One of the main aims of digital humanities as such is to ensure a discussion between social sciences and engineering and sciences, and this sort of this sort of gave us a small slice of what such discussions can do and what such platforms can do, and so we look forward to more such conversations, and thank you so much everyone for attending again, and thank you Dr. Rajiv Ratan Shah for organizing this, and yes, and it has been great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more doubts? Anything? Anyone has anything to say?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think we can.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.